Welcome to the Envelopes Emmy Contender Series. I'm Lorraine Ali, and today we're talking with Cress Williams, who plays Jefferson Pierce on the TV series Black Lightning.
Hi.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
You look very different when you're not in a light-up electric suit and the goggles.
Yeah, I try to switch it up a little bit.
Yeah. You try not to wear that out in public too much, or
No, only at night. It looks good at night, not necessarily in the day.
It does have quite the pop under the lights, right there.
Yes,
right? Yeah.
and
Okay.
I guess we discovered that no crime is committed during the day. Crime is only committed at night.
When things light up.
Yeah.
That's great. So, first off, Black Lightning, just giving some background on it for, perhaps some of the people that don't know. CW superhero series based on a 70s comic.
Yeah, DC comic.
DC comic,
yeah.
okay. And do you want to just take it from there and give a little background?
Yeah, the original comic was 77, I believe, and then there's been an iteration in the 1990s and the 2000s. And so our show is kind of an amalgamation of that and wonderful things mixed in. And the series picks up with Jefferson Pierce, who was a ex-Olympic decathlete teacher who's now a principal, and he had been Black Lightning 9 years prior, fighting crime, and he was married. He had 2 daughters, and then he retired to try to keep his family together, and was unsuccessful with that. So we pick it up, and he's now a principal of a school. His daughters are older, and he's still trying to get his family back together, and because of some trouble, he has to put the suit back on again.
Right.
Yeah.
And what is so great about that character is that there's so much in the superhero universe right now, right?
Yeah.
But he's a high school principal.
Yeah.
It's kind of like he's struggling between wanting to live this quiet life, but also having this deep sense of, social justice. I need to go out there and do this, and which really sort of speaks to the time we're in as well.
Yes.
So
yeah, it's wonderful because a lot of the superhero fare that's out there is this kind of, mega save the world type of thing, and we're rooted in a neighborhood, in a community, and Jefferson, aka Black Lightning, has tried education as a means to positively affect this community, and realizes that sometimes you got to mess some stuff up as well. But it's great. It's because it is rooted in real life and real issues, and he has a family, and that really is kind of the driving force of the show. That it's like a family drama with superpowers sprinkled on top, and social commentary, and all rolled into one.
right. That must have been, because there's so much stuff in there that he's reacting to that's really ripped from the headlines.
Yes.
There's police brutality, crime, race issue, just all of these things that we're grappling with now
Yeah.
in this universe. And what's great about the show is how do I say this? It doesn't take it too lightly, but it also puts it in a superhero context where he can sort of he's struggling with these things as well.
Yeah.
Just like we all are, right?
Yeah, well, I think it's great. Sometimes in a fantasy context, it's easier to look at truth because you can still kind of see it from a distance because it's like, oh, it's sci-fi or it's superhero, and so it's a great medium to look at some of the ills and look at. Even though it's a fictional city, it's kind of representative of so many cities across America that seem forgotten, that seem lost, and we can look at it from that safe distance and sometimes laugh at it, but usually not laugh at it because it's also pretty dark. So
Yeah, and what's great is also so many of the references woven into it, whether they're pop culture references, the soundtrack, which is phenomenal.
yes,
I mean, from Isaac Hayes to Run the Jewels.
Yeah.
I was just looking at Spotify has a whole, Black Lightning soundtrack, but I was like, they gotta start marketing these big time.
Oh my goodness, I didn't even know that. Yeah. That's one of the things because I in the past have not historically watched my things that I do. But this is one that I watch every single week, and I love I can still get surprised by things because I know where the plot is going, but I get to see the effects afterwards, and then I get to hear that music afterwards and like go, oh wow, what, Earth, Wind and Fire, we used that. That's a great moment, you know. And it is. I mean, Salim has just hit it out the park.
Yeah, and also timing-wise, correct me if I'm wrong, but the series debuted like a month before Black Panther came out in theaters,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Or
We
something.
debuted in February. No, wait,
Oh.
no, January. We debuted in January.
Yeah, it was right. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was before Black Panther, and it was, as a matter of fact, it was really amazing watching the show live and then seeing a commercial for Black Panther and then seeing on Twitter, you know, someone's like, oh my God, I'm watching Black Lightning and I just saw a commercial for Black Panther. It's a great day to be alive, you know. So it's epic, and I'm curious to see, you know, 10 years down the line, what effect it's had on society.
Yeah, because it does feel, and also, you know, we're heading, I think, into the second season of Luke Cage in like a month or something.
Yeah, second or third.
Third,
yeah,
maybe.
something like that.
And it's such an amazing time in that to have 3 black superhero film, TV, whatever it is, at this moment
Yeah.
that are so radically different.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not like we're telling that story. It's like, no, there isn't just that story. There's all these different and gradations, and that's kind of an amazing moment.
It's phenomenal. I mean, you know, historically, like kind of African American content has been a little few and far between, and so when ground is broken, it's like you have to do this. This show has to be everything. This movie has to tell everything.
Right.
But to have, you know, a Luke Cage and have a Black Panther and a Black Lightning, then, you know, like our show, we're allowed to just be who we are and tell that story, and trust that other stories are being told elsewhere. So it's pretty cool.
That's a really good point. It's not like all loaded into one area, and sometimes that can like really weight down.
Yeah, but because you can't tell everything, because then it just kind of all gets watered down.
Right.
But, you know, we get to kind of stay concentrated on a neighborhood, on a family, and on what is going on in society and how it's affecting that neighborhood and that family. And we don't have to fight aliens, or, you know, at least I hope we don't fight them soon.
Maybe season 2.
No, that should be the proverbial jumping the shark moment. So that'll be like, let's be down the line on fighting aliens and things
Right.
like that. Because there's enough to fight in just the world, you know, we live in. And it's just a great story to tell. I love the fact that we're a family show. I love the interactions with me and the daughters and my ex-wife, who's kind of like my wife but not, and it just, that family aspect is really cool.
So could you just talk about some of the things that Black Lightning or Jefferson Pierce, I always say the name backwards, but
What, you say Pierce Jefferson?
yes.
Oh,
And my
that's what
son goes, Mom, you
That's
got it
interesting.
wrong. And
It's like
I'm
Pierce Brosnan or something?
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't.
Just think Thomas Jefferson.
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. But some of the challenges that he faces in that community, like you're saying, you know, it's not that idea of fighting aliens. Can you just speak about some of the things that he's looking at making right, and then some of the challenges he has?
Well, yeah, I mean, it starts with the fact that, you know, he promised his ex-wife years ago that he would stop. You know, it was kind of like, you're coming home bloodied one too many times, and it's time to stop this. And so he's gone the pure educational route and has protected, you know, his students and his children in this kind of school bubble. Well, real life is creeping into that school bubble. You know, crime, police corruption, political corruption, drugs, you know, police brutality. These are all, I mean, in the first episode, he gets pulled over, and it's like, it's been the 3rd time this month that I've been pulled over, as he's trying to talk to his daughter about being peaceful, about nonviolence. So it's kind of all of that, while he's also raising a 16-year-old and kind of keeping alive a very rambunctious 20-something. And then you will later discover they have powers. And so it's interesting, because we also just explore that, yeah, there's a great side to having powers, but there's also a negative side as well, which I think we're going to get even more into in season 2.
Right.
And because historically, when you look at the whole mythology of superheroes, they typically have no ties. Usually, Superman, he had like Lois Lane, but she didn't know he was Superman, and Batman virtually had no ties. And so here's a superhero whose alter ego has children he's got to answer to and a wife he has to answer to, and so that's always the struggle of like I want to just fight crime. I want to go and make a change, but I still have to be principled. I still have kids to answer to and all of that. So.
Right. And some of the struggles you just face as a parent, period. It's like,
yeah.
I need to be a superhero to do all this.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean the episode where our youngest daughter announced to us that she's going to have sex and is ready to have sex.
Yeah.
That was a fun, crazy episode to deal with. And I have a 13-year-old, and it's just like, whoa, going, this is not how it would go down in my house, but, it had to be safe for television. But, that has nothing to do with superpowers at all. It's just life. And so that's really awesome to do. We get to have fun and kick butt and show special effects, but then we have moments that are really, they could be in anything without powers at all.
Right. And so when you, what sort of attracted you towards, because I was just looking at the history of what you've done, my God, you have been like in every, it's like 90210.
Oh yeah, going all the way back to the beginning.
The
yeah.
West Wing, am I
Oh
right?
yes, yeah.
Oh my
yeah.
God.
I love that one. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just a ton of, and everything kind of varied, what attracted you to this? Were you, like, is it something was the superhero franchise type thing something you've been attracted to, or were you just like?
No, not so much the franchise thing. I've been really extremely blessed to have created a career that where I've gotten a chance to play a lot of things. I haven't been pigeonholed. It was something that I really consciously set out to do from the moment pretty early on when I decided I wanted to be an actor. Is like I wanted to be able to go from A to Z, and I get bored really easily. As soon as I play a role, I need to play something different, and so I've been really lucky. But it really goes back to when I was a kid. I used to love watching cartoons and watching any type of superhero cartoon, and that was just kind of always in me. I still watch cartoons today, and I see every superhero movie that comes out, and I'm just kind of a geek at heart. And then they started making these films, and they started making these television shows. And so when it became like a legitimate thing, it was like this jumped to the top of my wish list of like, I've got to do that. Before that, and I want to play a cowboy someday. I want to play a knight and sword fight someday. But like superhero went to the top. And then this project came along, and when I read the script, it was like, so much more. Like, when I think about playing a superhero, yeah, it's the just all the bad kick-ass things, and it's just, the superpowers and all that stuff. But then I read the script, and like the hair on the back of my neck stood on, because it was real. Like I was reading, when he gets pulled over and knowing he has powers, and I was on the edge of my seat going, I don't know, what is he going to do? Is he just going to fry these cops? But then there's going to be repercussions to that. Is he going to, how can he restrain himself? Like all of these things. And so it's better than I could have hoped for, because he's so complicated, and he's also flawed, and typically the hero is very two-dimensional and just, but he's got a lot to struggle with. So as an actor, I just get to have a blast.
Yeah, yeah. Or on the flip side of it, it's the Deadpool thing of just being like a total mess. You know what I mean? So it's just like, it's a nice combination of a lot of those things, right?
Well, honestly, too, I mean, I had a moment a little while ago watching an episode where Jefferson was mentoring a young kid and gets him to come into the school for like a mentor program. And I'm watching the scene, and I just kind of distanced myself from that it was me, and I was like, wow, Jefferson Pierce is a really cool guy, and that's another thing that's extra awesome, the heroic Black Lightning. But Jefferson is heroic in his own right, that, he, without powers, he's trying to affect change. He's been like saving kids and helping kids, for years. And that's another part that's different than the normal superhero fare, right. that the alter ego is a hero, without powers, so, that's been fun to play.
Yeah, and just even, that's a really good point, like the alter ego, because let's just say you didn't even have the superpower part of it.
Yeah.
How often do roles like that even come along of just being that kind of guy
Yeah.
and being that complex?
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. I mean, by himself, you know, our showrunner, he comes from character-driven type of shows, and so at times I think he's talked about, even as he's writing, he forgets. He's like, oh, that's right, we're a superhero show. I got to throw some powers in there. I got to do this, because it's easy to get caught up in the drama, the relationships, which I'm so thankful for, because that's, as an actor, that's what you want to sink your teeth into.
Right,
You
right.
know?
And the showrunner is Salim
Akil. Yeah.
And like when you were younger and you're saying, you know, you're watching cartoons and watching superhero,
Yeah.
did you know that you wanted to get into acting? Or if not, what did you think you wanted to do?
No, I mean, I pretty much wanted to be an actor or a performer of some kind, like, my entire life. So I knew that I wanted to. For most of my childhood, I wanted to be like kind of a comical actor, and I was really drawn to Jerry Lewis and Eddie Murphy, and you know, dating myself, but Family Ties was going on, so I loved Michael J. Fox, and it was like I wanted to do this. And then this kind of transformative moment happened when I was watching Guys and Dolls, the old Guys and Dolls with Marlon Brando, with my mom, and I was like, wow, that was really cool. And then, I don't know, a few weeks later, I come into the house and she's watching The Godfather. I had never seen it before, and I sit down and start watching it and get sucked in, and it took me a while, and I started to realize, what, that guy, this guy, he looks familiar. Like, who is this guy? And then I realized, like, a light went off. I'm like, that's Marlon Brando, and I just saw him singing and dancing, like, you know, a few weeks ago, and like that just illuminated, like, that's what I want to do. I want to be able to do this and everything in between, and so I started kind of training in that direction.
And what do you consider was kind of like a breakthrough moment for you, or a moment that sort of changed things up, where it's like, okay, this actually could work out as a career, as like something I could...
Well, you know, it's interesting because, like, once I decided that I wanted to be an actor, like, there was nothing else that was going to happen. Even as a kid, like, you know, when they'd be like, oh, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be an actor. And then before anybody said anything, I'm like, I'm prepared to be poor. Like, I would say that because I knew the reality, and I was like, but I'm not doing anything else. So it just, I was going to do it whether I got paid for it or not, you know, because I couldn't do anything else, and I didn't want to not like what I was doing.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Were there suggestions from your parents, like maybe you might want to get into something that's a little more practical?
Thankfully, no, which is really odd. Like, I credit my mother, because I'm an introvert, and so I was a really shy kid. I had my cousins, they were all like extroverts, and they would be, you know, they had music playing in their house all the time, and they'd be dancing in the living room. And then I was a kid who would go to the bathroom, close the door, and like dance and like check out my moves and everything. But nobody knew anything. And I told my mother before she ever saw me perform, like, I want to be an actor, and she was like, great. And then all of a sudden, I was in I was emceeing a high school talent show, and we had to write our own sketches and our own intros and all that. And so I mean, I was doing impressions, I was, you know, impersonating Michael Jackson, I was doing all these things, and that's the first time she saw me. She's like, who is this kid? Who's my son? I've never seen him do this stuff.
Did you moonwalk?
I did. I did all of that. I mean, I pretended to play the saxophone. I did all these things that were in me, but nobody knew them, because I kept them to myself and in my room. And you know, even I think my first marriage, at our reception, my cousins, I was dancing, and it was the first time they were like, we didn't know Chris could dance. Like, what the? So it was, but thankfully she probably should have said, what, you're a shy kid. No, go into accounting or do something. Right. But she said, no, go ahead.
So just with Black Lightning, like the physicality of that role, I mean, there's a lot of, obviously, like, kick-ass scenes, right?
And, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, how easy or hard was that for you? You know what I mean? Was that like moving into kind of a new arena?
I mean, timing-wise, it was, on some level, it was easy. When I kind of turned the corner from 39 to 40, I really started changing my diet and became a huge fan of working out. I actually love working out. I have a home gym, and I feel really off if I don't. And so that part of it was already kind of in me, and the rhythm of it. And the fight choreography aspect of it is new, and that's a challenge, because every episode there's a new one. There's a new fight to learn, and I'm not 30 something, and so I got aches and pains, but the people around me are incredibly gracious, and my stunt double he's become like a great friend, a family friend, and he's amazing.
Right.
And so, but it's a challenge as I rub my knee. It's a challenge.
And I did not mean that as like, now that you're in your 40,
No, but that's
like,
just the reality of what it is, and it's it's kind of like, I guess I kind of liken it to a dancer, but it's like every episode there's a dance, and there's there's new choreography to learn, and I think the challenge is finding the time to fit that in, because you're filming and you're just going and you're filming scenes, and it's like, okay, in the midst of this you have to learn a new fight, and in the midst of this you got to rehearse it enough to be able to not kill yourself and look like you know what you're doing, while the train is still moving, and then you finish that one, you're like, okay, great, there's another one, and the next episode there's this one, and so it's a lot of work, but it keeps me not bored.
Right.
Because some days I'm just being dad and talking about cyberbullying, and then some days I'm on wires flying through the air. So
And all lit up.
yeah, always lit up, always lit up.
We have some questions from people who are watching.
Okay.
So Will on Twitter wants to know, what other comic book characters can we expect to see in season 2? That you won't get in trouble for.
Yeah, Will, I wish I could help you. I don't know. It's not that if I did know, I wouldn't be allowed to tell you. So, but honestly, I don't know. I mean, I think we'll still see Tobias, and we've already seen Painkiller, who, if people are fans of the comic, they know that, he's a comic book villain. But I just imagine we'll see more meta villains.
Okay. All right.
But I can't really answer that.
Tobias is a great villain. He's so scary.
I know, but he's so fun too, though.
Is he?
Yeah. Well,
he is good.
Marvin, the actor, is a really, really nice guy, and it's so funny. He's so sweet, and people are afraid of him. And we've been at conventions, and people will come to my table, and they're like, "I don't want to go." I'm like, "Go see him." I'm like, "No, I don't want to do that." I'm like, "Trust me, he's a really, really nice guy," and he is. He's
Another question.
Yeah.
How has it been getting immersed in Comic-Con culture, as you just mentioned?
It's interesting. It's on one hand, as an introvert, it's exhausting, to be quite honest. But then on the other hand, it's awesome to hear the stories that people come up to me and hearing the stories about families watching together, which I love. Like, so many people are like, "Oh, we watch together as a family," or young people will come up to me and go, "My grandmother doesn't watch any superhero shows," which is kind of like, yeah, probably not. But she loves your show, and we watch it together, and so that's really been amazing. One of the ones that really stands out is, I remember this interracial couple came up to my table, and it was a black man from like New York, and his wife was like a blonde white woman from England, and he came up and he started telling me about our show and how much it affected him, and the music, and how much that affected him, and he was just starting to cry and tear up over it. And then she started to tear up, and she's like, "Thank you," because of this show, I know what his life was like. I know what he has to deal with and what he's been through. And so they both were like, kind of weeping before me. So on a regular show, you don't get that experience. It's almost like a television version of a curtain call, where you get to interact with your audience.
Right, and what a high compliment, because it's beyond just like, wow, you're great in that, and it's a great show. It's like, it's deep. It means something.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the thing. I've never encountered so many people who will come up and just say, they want to say thank you.
Right.
It's not like, "Oh, you're awesome." They're just like, "Thank you."
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Okay. Okay, some of these questions I'm not going to ask
Bad.
you because there's a
Really?
lot of like work.
How do you pee in the suit? That one, like that type of question?
Yeah, I'm not going to ask you that.
Yeah. With a zipper.
Here we go. Okay, somebody's asking, did you read the comic books?
I did. I did after I got the job. I mean, the first episode, the world was very, very clear, and I just felt like I really understood Jefferson and Black Lightning. And so then once I got the job, then I just immersed myself in the 70s, the 90s, and the 2000 version, and which was cool because it allowed me to see like what we were pulling from. And you know what was interesting, the 70s version, like the comic has always been socially conscious all the way through. There was like, I remember reading an issue from the 70s that was like illegal immigration and this like kind of slumlord who's like, you know, taking immigrants and promising them that he was going to pay them this great wage, and then they get over here and he's working them like slaves and not paying them at all. Like this was in a 70s like issue. I was like, this could be today. This was
Right.
It's pretty amazing. So so yes, I have read the comics.
Okay, all right. So we have our lightning round of questions.
Okay.
Get ready.
Lightning round.
Oh,
Was that on purpose?
Yeah, we planned it that way. We've never asked anybody else in that chair about the lightning round. What was the last show that you binge watched?
Wow. Okay. Well, the last show that I binged watched I watched it for the third time was Battlestar Galactica.
Oh.
Yeah, like I said, I'm a nerd.
Wow, that is super nerdy.
Yeah. I still play Dungeons and
that
Dragons.
in the nicest way.
No, I am proud of being a nerd. Yeah.
Okay, all right. If you could go back and be on any TV show ever, what would it be?
Wow. Oh my goodness. I watch a lot of television. Like I grew up on television, so it's not just this one. I'm just going to say the one that popped in my head because there's so many. But it's odd. I would want to be on Moonlighting.
Wow.
Yeah, and I would want to be the Bruce Willis character. I would want to be David Addison. That was his name, I believe. I used to love that show, and it was like one of those. Like I think I was in high school at the time when it was on, and I used to watch it and like say the lines as it was going, you know, with it, and
wow.
Yeah.
A lot of people watch TV to unwind. What do you do to unwind? Other than like kick butt out and you know, defeat evil.
I think I work out. I mean, I watch TV to unwind too, but that's kind of like it's family time, and we don't watch a lot of fluff shows. Kind of, you know, there's so much television that you have to kind of weed out things that you're like, if I'm not passionate about it, I got to let it go because you're never going to run out of things to watch nowadays. So it's that, and I think working out. I said I played Dungeons and Dragons with some friends.
Still,
yeah.
Wow.
My first, actually, you're like, wow.
No, I did not mean it like that.
No, you kind of,
okay, maybe
yeah, a little bit. No, my first convention purchase, because you know I've been doing these conventions, and I was real excited. This guy came up to our table, and he had this case of D&D dice. D&D, Dungeons and Dragons dice. But they were made they were really fancy. They were made out of like a metal. Like they were like really, I'm like, where'd you get those? And he brought them just because he wanted me to sign the case. He had heard that I played and he wanted me to sign the case. And he's like, well, they're over there. And so I was so excited. I went over there and bought a set for myself and a set for my wife. And I was like, that was my first like buying something at a convention.
Wow.
Yeah, Dungeons and Dragons dice.
What do you know now that you wish you knew on your first acting job?
That you get to eat for free. Seriously, I wish I knew that. My first acting job, Beverly Hills 90210, I was still a student at the time. I was still finishing my last year of college, and I was flat broke. I got this job, and I was flat broke. I was driving a beat-up car that the passenger side seat was flat because it had broken on. It was my mom's old car. Actually, a woman that was a little large sat in it, and I was a kid in the back, and she broke the seat and it on my legs, and it was still that way. The passenger side window was busted out because somebody had broken it like while I had it. So I was still driving that, and I went to my first day of 90210, and I had no money. And it was like early morning, and I'm like, I have no money. I don't know how I'm going to eat. And I walked up to the food truck, and I just kind of looked, and the guy's like, "What do you want?" And I didn't know what to do, and I saw this thing said background breakfast. I didn't know what background was. I didn't realize that was like extras. And so I was like, I guess I'll take the background breakfast. And thankfully, he was like, he rolled his eyes and like, "What do you do?" I was like, I'm an actor. And he's like, "You can have whatever you want." And I like, wait, what? And yeah, so I wish I had known that ahead of time.
You're like, I have chosen the right career.
I have
can
chosen
have anything
the right,
I
yes,
want.
they feed you. They pay you and feed you.
Well, thank you so much for joining us here today. This has
you.
been amazing.
Oh, thank you.
And thank you. And if you want to hear more about our Envelope series, go to latimes.com.